It's time for another podcast by George. Straight talk, straight from the heartland, that'll have you saying, "By George, I think he's got it." Now, here's George.
Hello, hi, how are you? Welcome on in to kind of a holiday edition of Podcast by George. Taking a break, kind of getting back to something that I want to do, something that I like. You know, when I started the podcast, the subtitle is News, Blues, and Interviews. But when I started doing it, I didn't know the world was going to melt down, that our politicians in Washington were going to lose their minds, that we were going to have a pandemic. And so I haven't been able to do a lot of what I would like to do, which is music. I'd like to have more blues on this show. People confuse that with thinking that I like the news. Now, I'm like most people. I don't like the news that's going on right now, but I'm kind of compelled to cover it just because of the urgency. But today, we're going to talk blues. I mean, we're going to talk genuine traditional blues. I don't know if you call it gut bucket or not. That's not a very positive thing. But there's a new CD, a new digital album that came out this late summer and early fall that I've been listening to, and I've been wanting to get it on the podcast. And today we're going to do it. We've got Dustin Arbuckle and Matt Woods joining us on the Podcast by George live line, and they're both in their homes. I know Matt's up in central Iowa here, and Dustin, you're down in the Wichita area?
Yeah, I'm in Wichita, Kansas, in my basement.
Great. Oh, well, welcome in, guys. Welcome back. You've both been on the podcast before, but it's great to have you back on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us, George.
You know, I want to talk about this new album, and it's pretty simply named, and I always like to do it from the outside in, so I'm going to start off by putting this album cover up, and the guys will be able to see it here too. I mean, I love this. Now, Matt, I've been in your home, actually. Probably you haven't forgotten that yet. And I know you got a dog. I don't know, whose dog is this? Is it your dog or is it Dustin's dog?
It's a figment of the imagination of the artist.
That's beautiful. That's great.
It actually kind of looks like me getting out of the shower.
Because I just told this story on Podcast by George about Van Morrison. It's funny, but he has an album that was really famous back in the day, and it's got him on a grassy knoll or something playing with a couple of dogs, and he was asked for years after the album came out how his dogs were doing, and people were telling him that they loved him and stuff like that, and he was always kind of gruff. That's just the damn photographer's dogs. He just brought them to the shoot. They weren't his dogs at all, so that's great. I mean, that's good that it made the digital art for the album. And there is a song on here called I'm a Bloodhound, off of one of Matt's earlier releases. I got a couple of his CDs back over here over my shoulder. Folks can see those. And as by a way of introducing our guests, they're in Wichita and Ames, Iowa, as we mentioned, award-winning blues artists. Dustin, I first became aware of with the Moreland and Arbuckle band. I got a couple of his digital releases. I've got Damnations and I've got Haymakers, and that's we interviewed the Haymakers on the podcast before. And of course, Matt came storming out of the Midwest with the Thunderbolts, and he's been solo, and he was with the Buttercow Blues Band, and he's done a lot of things. And you guys decided to collaborate on this new release. So now that we've got the cover art out of the way, tell us how you decided to get together. I know you guys were friends. Did you meet on the road? How did this all come about?
Take it away, Dustin.
Matt and I had kind of known of each other and had a lot of mutual friends kind of around the Midwestern blues scene for years. And I think we met very briefly at the Des Moines Winter Blues Fest probably 10 or 12 years ago. When Matt was playing with the Thunderbolts and I was playing up there with M&A, and a friend of ours up in Minneapolis, a community radio guy and harmonica player named Harold Tremblay, had told me about Matt and told me to go check him out. So I did. And I really dug the Thunderbolts and thought that, his stuff sounded great back then, but then we just sort of never ran across each other again for a while. But a couple of years ago, after M&A split up, and I think we both just kind of happened to be looking for something new and fun to do at the time. I had seen I'd started seeing a bunch of Matt's videos on social media and was really digging what he was putting out there. And around the same time, he put out a post saying that he was looking for collaborators, and that sounded like a lot of fun to me. So I reached out, and that was kind of the beginning of it. We got to be really fast friends, and really enjoyed playing together, and have done some stuff around the Midwest, but managed to get gigs at a couple of really cool festivals out in Colorado in the summer of 2020, which, those didn't happen. But, when we knew that we had those coming up, we felt like we needed to have some kind of an album to sell and something to represent ourselves out there in the public eye. So we decided that we needed to get a record made.
I don't know, Matt. Everybody gets their own take on stuff, and I listened to this new album, and I thought to myself, Matt's got a couple of songs on here that he's got on Tired and Dirty, and I thought, well, why would he do that? Why would he put these songs on here? Well, when you hear them and you hear what Dustin brings to it and how cool it is, I kind of makes sense to me. So, and I look at that in the bigger picture, and I think, well, that probably, now I'm just, guessing here, but I'm thinking that probably had a lot to do why Matt wanted to do this collaboration, just because of the additional oomph that Dustin's harmonica and vocals and stuff give to this music.
Well, the fact of the matter is I just don't write that many songs. So when we decided to do this kind of, I don't know, it was planned to some extent, but it was a lot spur of the moment in a lot of ways too. And so I did some, wanted to do some of the songs I'd already recorded just because I didn't really whip together any songs, new songs fast enough. But I knew that with Dustin on it, it would be a whole different, kind of deal anyway. So for people that maybe have heard some of my other albums, which is unlikely that they've heard the other albums, but if they have, they would be, pleasantly surprised or interested in hearing what Dustin put on there. So to me, it's a whole different deal,
When it comes to recordings, I'm interested, like I said, kind of the dumb stuff. I'm interested in the covers. I'm interested in the song lineups particularly, and on vinyl albums, how you happen to choose the song to start with and what follows that, and the kind of the musical picture that it paints in the mind when all these songs come together. Was that important to you? I know this one starts with "You Gotta Know," or when you do a digital album, it's not that important like it would be on vinyl or a CD.
What? Go ahead, Dustin.
I think it is still important because even with digital stuff these days being a little bit more single song oriented, I do think there are still a lot of people out there who enjoy listening to an album as a cohesive, collection of songs. And so I think it's kind of like, baseball. Your lineup construction still matters. Maybe it's, a lot of analytics guys today would say that lineup construction is overrated, but I don't know. I think it still matters. And you want to have something really strong and high energy at the top of the record. And You Got to Know is definitely that.
Well, let's start off with that. I want to play a little bit of that. I'm just going to sample some of these songs to give people an idea of what I'm talking about and the beautiful traditional nature of, this is the real deal, folks. Listen to this. I'm going to sample You Gotta Know. Here it goes. talk about the next one in line, Always Gone. And Dustin, just to give you, to me, this sounds like a quintessential Dustin Arbuckle song. I mean, it's a road song. It's got that sound. I mean, when I heard that, I thought, oh yeah. I mean, this is a showcase for what you do. Do you view it that way or not, or is that overstating the significance of that song?
Well, I can tell you that I actually wrote that song on the way to the recording session.
So it was road. See, this is where people get. Yeah, it always reminds me of that line from Dylan. People asked him, what this song was about, and he said, "What's it mean to you?" And the guy said, "Well, he said this." He said, "Oh yeah, but that's what it means. That's what it is." To me, it's you out on the road, lonely in between gigs, and it's actually on the way to the recording studio.
Well, if I'm being completely honest, like the idea, the whole like "Always Gone Tomorrow" line that you hear in the third verse is something that's been rolling around in my head for literally over 15 years, because it came out of a conversation that me and a friend of mine had about a mutual friend that we were both occasionally playing with at the time, who really was hitting the touring life hard at the time. And that was before I really had started hitting the touring life all that hard. But, we had talked about how he was always gone tomorrow, and that stuck in my head. And I'd always wanted to write a song that used that line and kind of dealt with that theme. And, Matt, like Matt talked about, we didn't really have a lot of opportunity to write many songs for this. Like you said, it was pretty spur of the moment. And so I had played a gig in Kansas City on a Saturday night with the Damnations, and then crashed at our buddy Patrick Rekob's house, and then got up and drove straight to Ames on Sunday morning. And we went into the studio on Sunday afternoon and made the record in 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But so, I mean, I had this idea kicking around in my head. I was like, I got to bring at least one new song to this thing. And so that's where it came from. And, Matt provided, I thought, a really, really cool kind of Mississippi Fred McDowell style vibe to the song. And I was really happy with something that came together so quickly that with how that song came out. I thought it had a great vibe.
Yeah. Sometimes it just kind of works out,
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is, and again, I'm a novice at this, but I've listened to this whole CD. I keep calling it CD, album, digital, whatever the hell it is, digital record. It's a recording. I heard Jackson Brown one time say, I always call these things records because they're recordings. So no matter what format, I mean, it's a record. So when I listen to all the songs, if I had to pick one, I listen to this, Dustin, I think, man, you really sing your ass off on this song. To me, and I'm not a singer, I can't carry a tune in a bucket, but I think that your vocal work on this is maybe the best out of all of them. Did it strike you that way, or is this just a Dustin Arbuckle effort in your mind?
I don't know.
Dustin kills it every time, George. That's what he does.
I mean, the singing on that song is unbelievable, really, I think.
I think I just sang the song as it felt like it needed to be sung, I guess. And Matt's always talking about how there's kind of a counterpoint between our singing styles. He has a lot of power and a lot of intensity in his voice, and I think that comes across really, really well on this record in a lot of spots. And maybe my approach is a little more subtle, and so I think especially maybe between those first couple songs, you really see that contrast. I think that's a big part of why we work so well together is, those different approaches balance each other out very, very well.
Well, Matt's a guitar player and takes great pride in his guitar playing as well he should. But like a lot of great guitar players, my singing's not so. Hal Hendricks thought his singing sucked.
Matt is a great singer. Matt is a great singer, and we will argue about this till the end of the day. And
it's apparent. And since we're talking about singing, let's talk about an instrumental. The next song on here, and I have no idea what this is. IAKS Shuffle. It's a great instrumental, but IAK on on Facebook and stuff means I already know. What is it?
That's good.
Yeah, I guess we already did know. Matt, you want this one?
So the Ike Shuffle is the Iowa Kansas Shuffle.
Oh, I got it. IAKS. Oh, Iowa, Kansas. I got it. Wichita. All right, I got it. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, you got to piece it together a little bit slowly. Piece it together slowly. Don't sprain anything.
Right. You might need to look at a map.
Yeah,
Maybe
that's
it'll
great.
come to you.
Well, when I heard that, I thought, man, this is reminds me of closing time. And you guys have seen this a million times. I mean, when you really want to go out strong, you want to get that one guy that's been sitting there and hasn't danced all night long and is probably about, 7 sheets to the wind. This would make you get your ass up out of your chair and get up and dance. That's kind of the way that it struck me. I thought this is for closing time. The IAKS, Iowa, Kansas Shuffle. That's great. The next tune-up is what I talked about here a little bit earlier. This is a Matt Wood song. This is on Tired and Dirty, and it's V8 Ford. So tell us why you brought it to this album, and tell us what Dustin's role in this was and how that all came about.
Well, again, it was just kind of a song that I already had that I thought Dustin would do a good job adding some harp to it, and I wanted to hear that song with Dustin on it. So there you go. So we recorded it.
Go ahead, Dustin.
I like again, that's another song that I think adds a kind of different bit of ebb and flow to the album. It's something that I definitely have to take a different approach to from a lot of the other stuff. It's not as just straight ahead slash and burn kind of heavy handed Mississippi blues kind of stuff. It's something a little bit different. It's a little bit more pretty heavily inspired by, I think, kind of some old like Blind Lemon Jefferson or Lightning Hopkins kind of stuff, some more Texas kind of blues. So it's a fun one to do. It kind of gives a little bit different feel.
Yeah, definitely different than most everything else on the record, if I remember.
Yeah.
I mean, I loved it there, and I love it here. The song rolls right into Everybody Loves My Baby, and I made a little note about this to myself. As my God, I said, this is an embarrassment of riches almost. If you want to know what you guys are capable of doing, I mean, everything collectively, the both of you guys as singers and players, and I don't know, I just thought if you listen to this and think that these guys are somebody that you can go down to the club and see on a Saturday night here in the Midwest, I mean, this is a really fabulous tune. I really like this Everybody Loves My Baby song.
That was a song that was written by Lee McBee, who was a great singer and harmonica player from Kansas. He lived in the Lawrence area, but he fronted Mike Morgan and the Crawl, which is Mike still has a version of the band down in Dallas. But they did a lot of work on the North American and European blues scenes through the 90s and early 2000s. Lee was again, great singer, great harp player, and a tremendous influence on me, and guy who for me was kind of a musical hero, and who I got lucky enough to be friends with. And I think Matt and I both. Well, he had a standing gig at BB's Lawnside Barbecue in Kansas City Sunday nights for a long time, and I think we would both actually travel to that gig on a relatively regular basis. Make that 3-hour drive. Go hear Lee and the Confessors. And I know I took a lot from those experiences, and I think Matt did too.
Definitely. Yeah.
And so, I felt like it was kind of knowing that Lee had been an inspiration to both of us, and we wanted kind of a slow blues, kind of Muddy Waters style, Robert Nighthawk style thing. It felt like a pretty appropriate, if we were going to do a cover, a song that actually did have somebody else's name on it, that felt pretty appropriate to do.
It's great, and rolls into I'm a Bloodhound. Again, this is another Matt Wood song, and I mean, it's one of my favorites off of Tired and Dirty, Matt, and I saw that on there, and I thought, well, I don't know. I don't know that you can improve on that, but after listening to it, and maybe I'm looking at it the wrong way, do you look at this as an improvement on that song, or do you just look at it as a variation, a different version?
I've actually got a T-shirt that says "Everything's better with Arbuckle" that I wear around. So I knew that, of course. I mean, again, one of the reasons we selected that, or I thought that song would be a good idea to have on the record, is just what Dustin would do with it. So yeah, I appreciate it, George. That's my son's current favorite song also. So.
Yeah, it's great. And then, of course, I don't know, it kind of goes with the cover art, or maybe it's not related, but I look at that old hound dog sitting there on the front porch, and I think, oh, my God, I'm a bloodhound.
Well, and that's what inspired the cover art, was that song. My friend Randy Newby, who his son Kendall is the drummer for the Damnations, but Randy's a great artist and has done some different album art. He did Haymaker's album art as well, and a couple of t-shirt designs for me over the years. But I thought his aesthetic would be really good for our record, and so he listened to the album, and the first thing that was his favorite song was "I'm a Bloodhound," and he thought, an old hound dog sitting on the porch seemed pretty appropriate, and we loved it. So. Yeah, there you go. It's a great song. I'm not surprised it's Rodney's favorite. I'm glad that he likes your music. My son could care less about mine.
Oh my God.
Well, it comes and goes like everything else,
Right.
Well,
he's a songwriter. He titled one of the songs a train song, right, Matt? I mean,
that's right. Yeah.
He knows how to title a song, boy. Well, It Ain't Stealin' is the song that's up next. That's Matt Wood's guitar and vocals, and I mean, this is Earth, man. This is the blues. How would you describe it, Matt?
Yeah, I'll go along with whatever you think there, George. What does it mean to you?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's always the best. I mean, this whole album is that way. I mean, everybody will borrow a little bit of the blues and put it in rock music, and they'll change things. Well, and Moreland and Arbuckle were the same way. That stuff was blues based, but it was rock. It wasn't. This stuff is what the blues was, and I really like it during this time in particular, because things are bad, people are down, they're moping, and but think about back in the day when this kind of music was the music. There's always been blues around, and this album revisits that, and I just love it. And then, as I say that, the next song that I wanted to talk about was Fairfield, which is really an unusual tune. And Matt's an Iowan like I am, and I know Dustin's aware of this as well. But when folks up here think of Fairfield, they think of Maharishi University. And I thought, my God, what are we going to be talking transcendental meditation here, or what this is all about? But again, musicians and blues musicians tend to write about what they know, obviously. And this is kind of a road song, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, this is a song that I actually I recorded probably 10 years ago, at least 10 years ago, on a record with Thunderbolts, and that had the whole band on it, and I thought it'd be good again with Dustin to do kind of a stripped down version of it. But yeah, that's all I like to think of my songwriting as just kind of simple life experiences, and I don't try to be too fancy with anything, and that's just kind of the type of person I am. So it's kind of a straightforward life experience type deal.
Well, we've got to sample the one song. The other one that I wanted to make sure that I got in here was the closer. I mentioned the thing about the blues and the pandemic and all of that. Maybe, again, I'm reading too much into it, but my God, I'm getting buggy. This vaccine's coming along. I'm hoping to get out. I want to see you guys. I want to get some live music. I want to play hockey again. I want my life to get back to some semblance of what it was before. And, of course, this came out in late summer or early fall, and the song Keep Your Lamp Trimmed and Burning. Now, this is a cover song, Keep Your Lamp Trimmed and Burning. A lot of people nowadays wouldn't even know what that was. They still had some old lamps around the farm when I was a kid, but that kind of...
Keep your iPhone plugged in and charged, George.
Yeah, same kind of thing. I mean, get ready. I mean, and that's kind of what it meant to the gospel singers, and it's almost an old slave song or something like that. I mean, better things are coming. Just keep yourself prepared and be ready when the time comes to get out there and get after it. Am I reading too much into it, or is that why you guys did the song? And again, is that why it's the closer on this record?
No, that's not actually, because we didn't know at the time that the record was recorded in February, and it was about a month before all hell broke loose. So we didn't know. I guess maybe it was one of those things where it ended up being very appropriate for the moment. That's always been one of my favorite old gospel songs. I learned it listening to, Blind Willie Johnson, Mississippi Fred McDowell, guys like that. And, I think we went with a little bit more the sort of Fred McDowell kind of approach on it, but it's, again, always loved the melody. I've always loved the vibe of the song. And it's one that I recorded a cappella on the first Moreland and Arbuckle record 15 years ago.
No.
But I'd wanted to do it again, and we had messed around with it. I think when we had played together, whatever the most recent time prior to that had been, and felt like I don't know. I feel like country blues records, it's so akin to the gospel music of the time, and so many of those guys did both. So many of our favorite artists did both. And I always like to have, if you're going to do that kind of record, I feel like having at least one gospel song on there is appropriate. And, it fit into what we do, that style, that sort of really heavily Mississippi based style. And, so, I think it's also just the spirit of the song makes it a pretty appropriate closer.
Oh my God. Great for the times. The message is out. Let's listen to a little bit of that, and we'll come right back. Again, I want to thank you for playing along with me, coming on the podcast, talking about the new record. I want to give you the last words. It's been a long sludge here. I mean, since this thing started in March or April, I know you guys are used to being out. The road work that you do is unbelievable. The number of dates that you normally are on the road. I mean, a big life change for you. Hopefully, we're going to get by this sometime soon. Tell us where you're at right now and where you hope to be very shortly.
Well, I'll go first so Dustin can get the last word. We're just, it has. You're right. It's been a big life change, but it's been difficult at times, but there's been a lot of positive aspects too. It's been nice for me to spend some time with my family that I wouldn't normally have gotten. But at the same time, we're very anxious to get back and get back to business, and hopefully that'll just happen as soon as it possibly can. So we appreciate the chance to talk about everything with you, George, and thanks for having us.
Oh, that's great.
Absolutely. Thank you, George. We really appreciate it. And I can second everything that Matt said. I've been spending the bulk of my year on the road for, since about 2007, 2008. So it's been nice to have some additional time at home with the family this year. Although on the other hand, I'm so used to being on the road and it's become such a part of who I am that not having it has been very strange and kind of something that messes with your mind a little bit. So definitely looking forward to getting back. And I have to say that one of the things I was looking most forward to this year was the opportunity for Matt and I to play more together. I'd kind of lost, you hadn't been able to do as much of this kind of stuff over the last several years. And with Matt and I starting to play together, getting that back in the equation it's been great. And it's such a pleasure and such a, such a privilege for me to get to make music with him. And I, I was really looking forward to getting to do those festival gigs and just any of us get to actually kind of go on tour together. So I'm really looking forward to this summer. I think, the Durango Blues Train and the Telluride Blues and Brews Festival that we were supposed to play are still planning on happening. And the short kind of tours we were planning on doing around those and hopefully some other stuff along with, my stuff with Haymakers and the Damnations as well. But really just looking forward to getting back to making more music again here, hopefully in the not too distant future.
Well, it's like visiting with a couple old friends, folks. That's a great record. Pick it up and look for these guys when they're back out on the road again. Check them out on the web addresses that I put supered on the podcast here. And go to podcastbygeorge.com. And you can get each and every podcast that I release by just clicking on the little icon, the badge there, the platform that you like, and you'll get notified. But for right now, that's going to wrap it up. That's going to do it. That's all there is, and there ain't no more. That's another podcast by George.